Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kastuba. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Mara's house in Hudson, New York, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Steve Das. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to Walk on Wednesday. Walk on Wednesday is when we bring in one of our person from our community who we think are doing something a little interesting. We pick their brain a little bit, talk to them for about 10 minutes before we start the show. We do that every Wednesday. But before we introduce our special guest, Miss Mara, welcome to the show. And do you have any announcements?
Yes, we have a Back to Recovery group meetings at 1 and 9:30 p.m. Eastern time.
All right. That was good.
Karuna has
Concise.
her own map.
Okay.
She really does. I thought we should have told that.
Okay.
Announcements.
Okay. What else you got there, Kasuba?
Announcements? I don't have any announcements. I think you had something about Italy, right? Like now's the time.
Oh, yeah, now's the time. You know, we have this beautiful annual Italy retreat. A lot of people sit on fences. The fence is about to fall down, people. Wisdom of the
Jump on
Sages
one side or the
retreat
other.
is in Italy. There's our third annual, Tuesday, June 27th to July 4th. We have this retreat in Tuscany. It's at a Krishna temple that was built in an old estate.
Villa.
A beautiful villa on these hills. It's breathtaking. And so we do Wisdom of the Sages stuff. We have satsangs, we have big kirtans, and then we travel to all these other great places like Cinque Terre, Siena. It's quite wonderful. BRG is going to be there, Bhakti Recovery Group there. Shiva G is going to be there, so we have BRG meetings. It's just a really fun to have a vacation with our whole Wisdom of the Sages retreat community. It's ashram living. And then you could get in like an upgraded room too. And it's not super expensive either. Go to our website, wisdomofthesages.com/events. And I'm saying this because the whole trip is about to close. We have a big group going already. And when I say big group, sometimes it's like, oh, big group. It's more fun. It becomes more fun when you get a big group. That's what it's not like you want to, whenever it comes to these kirtan things, it's fun to get with a group of people who, talk about Krishna, sing about Krishna, eat delicious prasad together. It's really fun. So if you're thinking about it, you want to pull the trigger on it, so to speak. I think you can't say trigger. Trigger's a trigger. But if you can't, if you're thinking about it, then jump the fence. Today's the day. wisdomofthesages.com/events.
Yeah, that trip is like first of all, if you want to go to Tuscany and get all of that, if you're interested in, it's got all of that, right? The full-on Tuscan beauty, and you're overlooking the rolling hills and all that.
Oh my God!
There's like a pond there that we all go swimming in. There's it's got the whole thing that if you're looking for that kind of thing, but on top of that, it's got such a great devotional experience.
Oh yeah, it's got a great temple there. Yeah, and Satchidananda Swami joins us there.
Oh,
It's like a
that's
secret
right.
too. And then we go to Cinque Terre, which is like one of my favorite, the most breathtaking villages, 5 villages on these cliffs in the crystal clear water. Really nice. It's a nice, what it is. It's easy in for bhakti. You know what I mean? When we got into bhakti, it was like all austerity. Okay, you're gonna sleeping on the floor, and then you're gonna. It's no austerity. Italy is just so sensually pleasing.
Sure is, Raghunath. It sure is.
I don't need therapy. I need Italy.
Okay.
But we've even got that there too. Okay, so anyway, that's the latest.
All right.
Let's bring in our special guest, Keshava Jones. Welcome to the show.
Let's unmute him up there. There we go.
Hare Krishna. How are you
Welcome,
guys doing?
We're doing
Good.
great.
Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
Do you want
Let's
to
do-
introduce Keshava, Raghunath, or should I?
Why don't you? You've known his family for a really long time because you're a New Yorker. I always pop in and out of New Yorker. I'm just sort of a fan, a fan on the periphery.
Well, Keshava's a musician, a very talented kirtan musician. But he's grown up in a family of people that are just stalwarts when it comes to kirtan, right? Your grandparents were the first devotees in the family, right, Keshava?
Yes, they were.
And so they were like instrumental people in the Radha Govinda Mandir in Brooklyn.
Yes.
And their kids became incredible kirtan musicians. Amongst them is Ananta Govinda, Achyuta Gopi. We've mentioned them many times on the show, and you can check out their kirtans online. If you Google Achyuta Gopi, you're going to find lots of stuff. If you go to what is it, Concrete Jungle,
Concrete Jungle
SoundCloud.
Kirtan.
Yeah.
Is that on SoundCloud? Concrete
So-
Jungle Kirtan.
So
Yes.
Achyuta and Ananta are your uncles. Is that correct? Or
Uncle and aunt,
aunts?
yeah.
Uncle and aunt.
Yeah.
and aunt,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember seeing at a very young age, kind of getting trained up, like, sitting in the kirtans, whether it's at Radha Govinda Mandir or the Bhakti Center, and passing the mic around, and you're just like, I don't know how old you were when they started passing the mic over to you.
I was about 7 years old.
Yeah.
That was my first interaction where I kind of just got handed a mic and they
Okay.
put it in my face and they're like, go for it. And at that time I would just cry. There wasn't much singing. It was more just, eh. But time went along, I got used to it, and it was a very enjoyable experience.
Yeah. Well, you have two brothers that are also expert kirtaniyas.
Yes, I have two brothers, Vasudeva and Govinda.
Yeah, and so it seemed like Govinda really learned mridanga first, like really expertly, right?
Yeah, he was
And
very expert at Mridanga.
And I would see Vasudeva playing flute and doing, playing different instruments.
Yeah, he's very much multi-talented. He plays guitar, he plays flute, and he does a lot of singing.
Then he started singing, and I was like, whoa, it's like.
Yeah, he
But you were singing, especially, early on.
yeah.
Yeah, and
That-
could you share with us just what it was like for you, like growing up in that atmosphere? How you got trained up in music and what that was like.
It was very much a blessing growing up in that environment. I found myself traveling to a lot of different kirtan festivals around the world and getting a lot of opportunities to sing, especially at the 24-hour kirtan in New Vrindavan. Gauravani and Ananta and Achyuta, they would always make it kind of staple to make it so there was a kids kirtan. So there was a
Oh.
whole slot that was just for kids.
I see. Yeah.
So me and Gauravani's kids, we would all get an opportunity to kind of just lead kirtan for a bit. And it was always just a really nice experience. And it was very nice to be encouraged to do that. Because as a young child, sometimes that's not always what you're thinking about. You're more thinking about, like, when am I going to get to play tag or something like that, run around,
Yeah.
just kind of be a kid. So I always did have an inclination towards kirtan. I always liked listening to kirtan and listening to spiritual music, but without them, I wouldn't have had the encouragement to actually,
You can do
get
this.
into it and actually, feel like I could do it.
Well, like, for people to understand really what it's, watching your family, what it means is, you'd be on Sunday at the Brooklyn Temple, on Wednesday at the Brooklyn Temple, right? Thursday Bhakti Center, and all these different festivals, and in all of them, your family is very central to the whole thing, whether they're leading or not, and but they're very central to the whole kirtan experience. Like and going like all night, like in other words, like Ananta, your uncle, he's kind of the central figure there, and he's
Yes.
kind of like he's keeping everybody like on point, and like and but he does it with charisma and natural enthusiasm, and a big heart, and he kind of involves everyone. And when say a program goes from like 6 till 9, and then like everyone breaks down and takes prasad and goes home, you guys just keep going with the kirtan.
Yeah.
Like
Then we'll have another set from like 9 to whenever they kick us out.
11, yeah, whenever they kick you out. I think it was probably. Did you ever come to the Broom Street Temple when I had the thing going on there? Right, so you were real young then.
Yeah, I was a bit of a kid, so I wasn't really in there as much because I wanted to run around, play tag.
Okay, but we used to do programs there, and they would end at like midnight, 1:00, 1:30.
Yeah.
Your family just keeps going. It's a you can see it's not for them, kirtan isn't like a duty. It's not like some kind of religious ritual that we have to do. It's like their life, and they become so talented. So there's so much heart put into it. It just becomes it's music just that really goes on a whole nother level. And everybody's seeing you now, like growing up in that, and just now holding it yourself, like having all the skills, having the attitude, the devotional attitude, just that was just there in the family, and now you guys are taking up, and now we're watching your little cousins kind of, they're passing the mic to them now, right?
Yeah, we are.
Can I jump in a second? I think there's something very like organic about people playing music with each other from childhood over the years. And not only like when we do kirtan, usually, if I'll go to a city, so I'll say, hey, does anybody play the mridanga? We're going to do a kirtan. Does anybody play kartals? And that's sort of nice when you can on the spot put people together. But when you're actually playing with people year after year, month after month, or in your case, like day after day, where you really know the songs they play, the melodies they play, the breakdowns they play, it becomes so natural, so organic. And as a witnesser of that, we're all mesmerized, like, wow, they are locked in so tight. And it is the most attractive thing to witness. So I highly recommend, especially if you're like come through a lot of our audience doesn't live in New York, but you come through New York City, everybody comes through New York, or especially during Ratha Yatra, you come through New York and hear these guys on a Thursday night kirtan. It's so impressive to witness. I remember I met a friend who's like a sort of famous comedian, and he ran into me in the streets of New York, and I said, hey, you got to come to a kirtan. He was like, what's a kirtan? I was like, just come here. And you guys were leading up there, and I brought him right to the front. And I tell you, I thought he was going to start to cry. He was like, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen anything like this. And he just left, and he was just texting me all day the next day. I don't know what that was. And it's so impressive to witness when musicians are just jamming together, what to speak of high vibe, spiritually conscious musicians been playing from babyhood. You guys have been playing from, I see your little nephews. I remember you. How old are you now, Keshava?
I'm turning 21 this Saturday.
Happy birthday. 21. Where was I 21 years? What year was that? I can't do math. What year is it now? 21. 2000. Okay, at 2002. I must have known you. Oh, no. Yeah, when he was. Yeah, that's 2000s. Yeah. You guys, Kostuba, you must remember when these guys were born for their first little kirtans.
I do.
You do.
And here's what we wanted to one of the reasons why we want to bring Keshava to you today is because just like he was kind of raised in that lineage, every listener now has the opportunity to connect to that lineage, to tie themselves in, because you're offering music classes online, Keshava, right?
Yes, I am offering one-on-one kirtan classes
What are you
Oh.
teaching?
I am teaching mainly vocals and harmonium and a
Okay.
mixture of that, but yeah,
Oh,
vocals and
you are
harmonium.
about to get mobbed, Keshava Jones. You're about to get mobbed.
No,
And
this
so
is
they can reach you with your Instagram account, right? Which is
Yes.
Keshava, KESHAVA _ RGM, like Radha Govinda Mandir. Get it?
Yeah.
Keshava _ RGM. Fantastic. And so they can,
and that's on Instagram.
yeah,
right?
so they can
Yes.
So
direct message you.
we'll put that in the show notes. Anybody that's
Okay.
listening to this can check their show notes and they'll find a link for that.
You're about to have a full schedule. You're about to
Yeah.
have a full-time job. I don't know if you planned this.
I mean, I didn't plan for it, but I'm excited and I
He's ready
like to
for it.
see where it goes. I just really feel like what I got as a kid, the encouragement and the teachings that I got, I want to share with other people who want to do kirtan.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just a me thing. It's everyone can do it. Anyone can do kirtan. So
That's you're saying that it just makes me think of Ananta Govinda, because like that you see it's his mood. He'll sit down there. He's as talented a kirtan musician as you're going to find anywhere. But when he's like, quote unquote, like on that stage, he's really just, I can see him. It's really just about getting everyone together and involving everyone. Like half the time he's just passing the mic around to everyone when
Right.
he's leading, right? And when he's singing himself, you can see it's really about getting right into that groove, whatever it takes in the moment to get everybody together, like all moving, together. And so it's great to see you just like kind of expanding that wave and reaching out. And I can really tell everyone, with complete honesty, if you want to learn kirtan, this is the family you want to connect to.
I know.
These are people that really know it the right way, the real way. They've got both the skills, tremendously talented, as well as the heart for it. And so I really highly recommend if you want to learn about kirtan, take Keshava's classes, check them out.
Thanks for joining us, Keshava.
thank you for having me on here. Thank you, guys.
We'll
Go ahead.
see you at Ratha Yatra. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah. Yes, please.
not
Can't
so
wait
far
to
off,
sing with
man.
you guys.
All
Can't wait
right.
to sing with you guys. You guys are
Thank-
getting the mic.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks so
Bo.
much, Keshava.
All right, bro.
Haribol.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's what we also have to announce our Ratha Yatra retreat. We do this every year also.
Yeah.
At the Bhakti Center. What is it, the 9th, 10th, and 11th of June? Second weekend of June.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
We have a Friday evening program. Then we have a whole morning program at the Bhakti Center. And then we all take a little field trip over to the big parade, the massive Krishna parade, which is the replica of the original Ratha Yatra festival in Jagannath Puri. It's quite amazing. My first Ratha Yatra I ever went to, that was like such a life changer for me. You know what, Kostova, I find like singing outside publicly, there's something so releasing about your ego. Just singing out loud itself. If you just walk down the street and just sing out loud, but when you sing with the devotees, a lot of times we do kirtan in a yoga studio. We do kirtan in the privacy of our own home. We go to a little kirtan in someone's house, or we go to a kirtan with Krishna Das or something like that. And you're sort of in this bubble of kirtan people. But when you take that party to the streets, it's like, oh, it's sort of like part of your ego sheds. And that shedding of the ego is the most liberating thing you could ever feel. So join us that weekend at Ratha Yatra Festival. And then we have another program the next day for a little bit more than half the day.
Yeah,
But
so
check
Friday
that out.
night, Saturday,
Yeah.
and Sunday morning.
You check that on the Bhakti Center website. We always have a nice group of people. And we're going to have a Wisdom of the Sages table there. And at the table, we'll sell our t-shirts, but we really just get to hang out with all the others and Zoomers there. We set up on the ground and we have our own little kirtan right there. It's very, very fun.
Yeah, and that's the kind of retreat where it's like, actually, you have to have your own place. It's like,
yes, we can't put you up.
We don't, like, if you do on a Super Soul Farm or Italy or whatever like that, we're providing room and board. The one in New York, we're not. It's just you come, to the Bhakti Center at those times, but that makes it really inexpensive and easy to attend, particularly if you're in the area.
Well, not if you're from out of town. It makes it very expensive because New
Well,
York's
I'm
expensive.
saying-
But yes,
Well, no,
we're all
you may
staying at
have someone to
Kestuva's
stay
house. It's really
with.
cheap.
Yeah, you may have someone to stay with or something like that. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Are you ready to take a deep dive into the Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhu?
I am.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chayavanarotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before we start in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva vadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome in the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet.
All right.
Alrighty.
All righty, Daddy.
We're reading from the chapter 10 of the 5th canto, text 23.
I think we're gonna wrap it up today, Raghunath. Wrap up the chapter.
Wrap it up. Oh, Krishna.
Yeah.
My dear sir. Okay,
Who's
so
speaking?
here we are. We have Maharaj Rahugana questioning, wanting to go deeper into spiritual life. He has a what's it called? A serendipitous meeting with a Mahatma, with a great soul. He didn't think he was a great soul. He thought he was just some big oafish man carrying his palanquin. And then that oafish man really schooled him hard when he and so now he's realizing, wow, this is not an ordinary being. And sometimes we have maybe not as with the highest caliber of Judd Bart, but we meet people we are like, oh, you're really deep. We meet somebody who's got great depth to them, and it takes us back a little. This is where the king was at. He met somebody, he realized on the externals, man, I've been judging this book by a cover. This person's very wise. He's very deep. I could learn from him.
Yeah. And now he's placing questions because, and why don't you read the first this text 23, and we can discuss. He's questioning him on a certain level, in a certain way, and or you could say in a certain context. And I think it's a level that like we take questions on Saturdays.
Yeah.
Like people have questions for us, they can write into wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com, and we take those questions on Saturday. But I find a lot of the questions that we get, they have a similarity to the questions that are being presented here, and we can discuss it.
My dear sir, you have said that the relationship between the king and the subject, or between master and servant, are not eternal. But although such relationships are temporary, when a person takes the position of a king, his duty is to rule the citizens and punish those who are disobedient to the laws. By punishing them, he teaches the citizens to obey the laws of the state. Again, you have said that punishing a person who is deaf and dumb is like chewing the chewed or grinding the pulp. That is to say, there is no benefit in it. However, if one is engaged in his own occupational duty, as ordered by the Supreme Lord, his sinful activities are certainly diminished. Therefore, if one is engaged in his occupational duty by force, he benefits because he can vanquish all of his sinful activities in that way. Want to explain this a little bit, Keshava? It sounds like, wait a second, this is just instituted to control people from misbehaving. Isn't that what religion and governments are for? Just the controlling of the people, so there can be some king having all this wealth, and then of course there's all these servants. What is this promoting?
Well, I think that's a side note, and let's address it. Earlier in the Bhagavatam, and we've gone to this many times, in one of the commentaries on I may be wrong, but it may be first canto, chapter 7, text 11, if I remember correctly. But Srila Prabhupada gives a commentary where he says, you know what, English isn't my first language. And So I'm going to express things, and I hope you can understand what I'm trying to say. But the message is so important. And so when Prabhupada says by force here, I think like, you know, I think like regulation may have been like a word that we'd relate to more here. You know, like in other words, therefore, if engaged in their occupational duties by regulation, you know, you benefit. So in other words, um, you know, rulers of state, whether they be democratically elected or whether they be kings or whatever it is, they create regulations, and the regulations are meant to keep society moving forward in a progressive way, in a helpful way, in a healthy way. You know, in one sense, I think he's not really saying anything much more than that right there. But the line of questioning that he's giving, he's referring back to some of the things that Jadabharta had said to him just earlier, right? For instance, he was saying that the king had been insulting him, you know, because he wasn't carrying the palanquin well. And so in a really arrogant mood, the king was being sarcastic and was, you know, and was criticizing him. And he was kind of saying like, hey, don't you get it? I'm the king. You're the subject. I'm the master. You're the servant. You better start to behave that way, right? And Jadabharta turned around and he said he was speaking on what we could call like a conventional platform, the platform that we commonly are just operating on. In the worldly context, it was a fact. One of them was the king. One of them was the servant of the king. But when Jadabharta responded to him, he responded to him from another platform, right? In another context. He was saying, you know, maybe you're the king right now and I'm not, but let's zoom out. Let's look at this not from the conventional perspective, but from a zoomed out transcendental perspective, or you could say from a spiritual perspective, right? And from that perspective, you're the king for a moment and I'm the subject for a moment. And then we take on other identities. So our real identities are really not tied to these positions. Think about that. He was encouraging him to think on an entirely different level. And now the king is coming back and saying, okay, what you're saying is true, but isn't it still a fact that as a king, I have certain duties and that I have to behave like this? Are you telling me that I should entirely drop that? Is that where you're coming from? Isn't it necessary for a king to act as a king? You know, even if when I die, I'll take on another, you know, role, but due to the force of time, eventually I'll take on another role. You know, is it that, am I supposed to completely drop everything? And this is what I say, this is what I'm kind of getting at, Raghunath, when I say, I think a lot of the questions that we get are on this level because Bhagavatam is throwing out these instructions. And many of them are coming from this zoomed out perspective, right? They're challenging us to kind of crack some of our conventional thinking and think from an entirely different perspective. And when we hear that, the immediate response is, but hold it, then my world will fall apart, right?
Yeah.
You're telling me that I'm not the parent of my child? Well, then am I supposed to stop behaving like that? Am I supposed to stop caring for them? It's like, and so a lot of this has to do with kind of like embracing two worldviews at the same time, simultaneously. You know, I was thinking back to you weren't there that day. I don't know if you ever heard this episode, Raghunath, but we've discussed it before. But once we had spiritual scientists on the show, Chaitanya Charan. Are you working out a program with him? I know
I'm trying to work out something with the spiritual scientist. He's coming right between two retreats, so it's a little difficult. Okay. But I'm going to talk to him today and see if we can make something happen. If not, he's coming back in, I think, October or September.
Okay. But when we had him on, I interviewed him once on their show, and we spoke about Bhagavad-gita. And in that conversation, he brought out something where he said, we all have two identities. And he categorized them as the functional identity and the fundamental identity.
Oh yeah, that was a great way to put it.
Yeah, right.
Functional and fundamental.
Yeah, functional and fundamental. So here the king is saying, you're speaking to me like you're telling me to give up my function, aren't you? Like, in other words, we have a functional identity, which means these are identities that we embrace temporarily in relation to the roles and responsibilities that we have in this world. I have a functional identity. You, like, for instance, you have a functional identity as a father, Raghunath, right?
Right. And the point the king is trying to make, if I can just jump in, is like, there's nothing wrong with this functional identity, because in this functional identity, I'm purifying myself by doing the functional things I'm supposed to do as a king, as a parent, as a husband, the functional identity is also designed to purify ourselves. Why are you saying give up that? Why are you saying it's not a real position?
Right. And Jadabharta is kind of coming back with, and by the way, he's going to answer all these questions in the next chapter, and it's really going to come out. Jadabharta is going to continue to push. He's not going to say, yeah, I'm not telling you to give up being a king, but I'm encouraging you to expand your mind and to begin to think on this fundamental level. And so let's be clear about this too. Functional means we have functions in this world that are temporary roles that we play, but they're not who we really are. That's not me in my deepest spiritual sense. So he's saying, as we carry out our functional roles, as we along with our functional identity that we embrace, whether that be in the workplace, whether that be within the family or broader society, as we play out those roles, and you were just mentioning, Raghunath, that particularly in this Vedic yoga context, carrying out those functions were a way to elevate one, to become responsible and dutiful. And if one does that, one reaps good karma, and life becomes more pleasant and easier. But what Jadabharta is saying is, here, you can get lost in that. Those are little stepping stones, but you're meant to go way beyond that and realize your deepest spiritual potential, your fundamental identity, which means I am not a husband, a wife, a mother, or father. That's not my fundamental identity. My fundamental identity is I have an eternal relationship with the Supreme Spirit. I am the energy of the Supreme Spirit, of God, ultimately. And I have a connection that's eternal, that's beyond these temporary changing functional identities. Think of that, meditate on that. Even as you're carrying out your functional duties, let them bring that out rather than cover that up. Otherwise, you could get lost in those functional roles that we play in life and forget who you really are. And life is about self-realization, realizing who we really are.
It's amazing how the king, who really assumed Jadbharta was just a dullard, is now like, he's just stopping and having like a very deep conversation, as if like, he's in a university library or something, like, whoa. But if you actually like see what's going on, like in just a moment ago, you just thought this guy was just some like, manual laborer that was not bright. Did you ever meet a person that is not very intelligent, but has deep wisdom?
Yeah, for sure.
It's a great, paradigm shift. I remember I get in Bhakti, especially because there's so much wisdom there. And we teach not just to study wisdom, but to apply truth. And that's how you become wise. I remember as a new devotee, I'd be like shocked, like, this guy is a dumb, but he's so wise. Like this guy is a dumb, but especially,
like,
sometimes
words, in terms of his functioning in this world, he appears to
he was like not a doer. Back then I was like, you got to be a doer. You got to be an achiever. You got to make things out of your life. You got to step into bigger shoes. No, you don't. You don't have to do that at all. Matter of fact, some very smart people do much, much, much less, because they're just like enjoying just being in the world without trying to accomplish everything, anyway, this is like a real thing. And I just wanted to point this out, because our intellect doesn't necessarily have anything to do with our wisdom. There's an analogy of a child who's not a PhD or an academic, etc., is lost in the forest with a father who is perhaps a PhD and academic. They're lost in the woods and it's getting dark. The sun's setting. They park their car. They can't find it. So the young child says, wait, I'm going to climb a tree. And the child climbs a tree. And from that vantage point, they could say, Father, we're not that lost. The car's right over there. I can see it from here. So the child, even though not very qualified intellectually, has some type of deeper insight, a different vantage
perspective.
point, right?
Yeah.
And so in bhakti especially, we really highlight the hearing of truth and applying to truth. No matter, listen, I can study a lot, I can read a lot, but it's not like I'm a great intellect. It's not like I'm one of those guys who read something and I retain it. There is hope for the dullards of the world, people. I just want to raise the flag for the dullards. There's hope for us here, because what we're really eager for is this wisdom, which comes from hearing some truth. And you'll hear it on this podcast, the degree that we imbibe the Srimad Bhagavatam, you'll hear some truth. Can I take that truth and put it to practice? And we can do that no matter where we're at in life, no matter where our mental capabilities are. Wisdom is where we're going. Applying this truth on a regular basis is going to really radically upgrade our life.
You know what you're climbing the tree analogy, Raghunath. That was that really gets at something, right? Because it's about getting a different perspective. And even despite the child's inferior knowledge or training, but because he had a more appropriate, more practical perspective, he was able to solve the problem, right? And so that's so helpful, right? Because it's like, yeah, we are born into different circumstances. Some of us have brains that are more efficient than others. Some of us have been educated more or less than others. Some of us have pressures in life, that draw energy from us more than others. We're all in different circumstances. What's being said here is like a lot of the yoga texts, they demand levels of personal accomplishment that are like so sky high, levels of renunciation, levels of austerity and so on, to be a yogi and to achieve some high level. But there's another, this king right here, what he's showing is he's not as deep as Jadabharata, but he's showing in the Bhagavad-gita, Krishna calls it Shruti Parayana, an inclination to hear, right? An inclination to hear truth from a truth speaker, which is basically saying, here, look at this. Let's look at this from another perspective, right? And from that perspective, everything looks entirely different. So in one sense, what the maybe the most powerful form of yoga is this shravana, is this hearing, where you hear something and then you see the world through that. You hold that up and look through what you've heard. You look at the world through what you've heard. And suddenly everything what was painful before, it's not that it may not exactly hurt, but it doesn't hurt in the same way. And it becomes like a path of growth, right? And we were talking about that yesterday with Prabhupada gave that analogy of the car, right? That like if someone harms a car that's not your car, you're
Right.
you're not upset about it. Someone harms your car because you identify with it. Suddenly it's very painful. So when you begin to not identify with the functional identity, not identify with your particular role, not identify with your body, not identify with your mind, that perspective is tremendously liberating. And then it leads to the highest liberation. It gives, from that platform, you can break the bondage entirely.
Now I have to share my personal story about this,
yeah.
if you don't mind.
Please.
I think you'll appreciate it.
All right.
So when I was a pretty new devotee, I moved to Gitanagri Farm, which is in rural Pennsylvania. And, in the old days of the Krishna movement, anyone who was really sort of like, sharp or bright, you'd be on the front lines. If you were living in an ashram, you'd be on the front lines, spreading the holy name, in the cities, teaching people about the Bhagavad-gita, speaking to people, giving classes to people. For me, because I was coming out of the music scene, I really just wanted to detox from the cities. So I went to a farm, but on the farm were a lot of people who just like, they maybe weren't the most eloquent.
Simple country
They're
folk.
simple country folk. And, you know, they almost, it could appear like dullards or people that couldn't sort of maybe preach or explain things well. And I remember I went through a walk in the forest alone. And I was just, for me, I was just like, I've been in cities, I've been on tour with my band. And, you know, this is so good for me. It's so good to be in nature. There was a stream going by. There's the trees and the forest and the wind. And I was really getting into it. I was barefoot. And in the middle of the woods, there was like a bench by the creek. And there was like an older brahmachari sort of laying sort of like Neem Karoli Baba sideways on the bench, like taking a little nap. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought I sort of like interrupted him or invaded his space. And this was a guy who, you know, I heard him speak. He almost sounded a little dumb, you know, when he spoke.
Okay.
And I just struck up a conversation with him. And I said, oh, isn't this beautiful? I was like a new guy. I was just like, how beautiful, how fortunate we are to walk in the beauty of nature. The whole world is forgetting about nature. It's right in front of us. The birds are singing. It's like, it's a beautiful day today.
You said that to him?
I said that to him. I was just like excited about just being connected with nature, living, you know, I was coming right out of the Lower East Side. And so he looked at me and he goes, well, it appears beautiful.
No.
I go, and I said, what do you mean? He said, you mentioned the birds singing. Do you understand the birds are singing because they're just looking for sex or because they're fearful? They're fearful that someone's trying to kill them. Basically, all these beautiful animals, they're just trying to eat and sleep and mate and defend. And if we are just doing that with our life, that's all we are. We're nothing better than an animal that's using that pretty voice just to attract people for sense gratification or out of fear, etc. And he just like he cut through all of my like romance of nature and he just put it in such black and white terms. And again, the guy wasn't the brightest guy in the world, but because he lived the Bhagavatam and saw it through the lens, what we were saying yesterday, through the lens or the vantage point of the Bhagavatam, or like the vantage point of the little boy who climbed the tree, he had a different relationship with nature. Not that you despise it. You see it for what it is, but you see, oh yeah, there's right?
He could maintain, like he was out there for a reason, right? Like obviously he was
appreciating nature. He was appreciating just the quietude, etc.
But he was capable of maintaining two perspectives, a functional and a fundamental one, a conventional one and a trans-conventional one, you know, like a beyond conventional one or a transcendental one, right? Like,
sure.
Yeah. And that's where so like, again, I mentioned like a lot of the questions that we get, we hear the king's about to say something. Why don't you read the next text?
Text 24. Text 24. Whatever you have spoken appears to me to be contradictory.
That's my point right there, right? It's like, on one hand, I'm supposed to be like a dharmic person. And on the other hand, you're saying that all the roles that I play in society are illusory. You know, and I'm not supposed, and I'm supposed to become free of illusion. So which one is it? And what it comes down to is that we're meant to be, as we move through this world, we're meant to be able to simultaneously hold two perspectives, a functional one and a fundamental one, you know, a conventional one and a trans-conventional one. Otherwise, all these instructions will appear contradictory.
Right. Which is sometimes, yes, when you read one Vedic book versus another Vedic book, it's like, these don't match up. What's the context? How do these go together?
Yeah, right.
Oh, and that's the beauty of the Bhagavatam. It actually gives two different vantage points.
But it clarifies that, and it also will say, and they're all just the same doors to the same. No, they're in a hierarchy. You're meant to evolve from one to the next, which Bhagavatam makes very clear, and it's one of the most important features of it.
Yeah. For this, I have certainly become an offender. Wait a second, I missed something. I've committed. Oh, wait, oh best friend of the distressed, I have committed a great offense by insulting you. I was puffed up with false prestige due to possessing the body of a king. For this, I've certainly become an offender. Therefore, I pray that you kindly glance at me with your causeless mercy. If you do so, I can be relieved from sinful activities brought about by insulting you.
You know, there's the bad karma that he's got coming to him. Why don't you finish it? Last verse.
Sure. Oh, my Lord, you are the friend of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's saying this to Judd Bart, who is the friend of all living entities. Nice way to look at God. God is the friend of all beings.
The friend of the friend. Put your hand in the hand of the man.
Put your hand in the hand of the man. Who sang that?
I don't know.
Come on, you know.
I
Someone
don't know.
knows. Greg DeGacy knows.
Okay.
Although I have committed an offense by insulting you, I know that there is no loss or gain for you due to my insult. You are
Hold
fixed.
on. You skipped an important sentence.
Oh, okay.
Why
Although
don't
I
you
have
start the
committed
whole
an
verse?
offense.
Start the whole verse again.
I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, my dear Lord, you are the friend of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the friend of all living entities. You are therefore equal to everyone, and you are free from the bodily conception.
So that right there, that sentence,
That's
if
a big
you want to
statement.
talk about what it means to be spiritual, that sentence holds a lot of meaning for us.
And you can't fake it.
And it's talking about your vision of how you see other people, you know, how you relate to other people. So you are therefore equal to everyone, and you are free from the bodily conception. Okay.
Which means you're free from the subtle body. You're free from the ego conception. That's what the next line says. Although I've committed an offense by insulting you, I know that there is no loss or gain for you. Like you're not insulted, right?
Yeah, he's saying, I was wrong for insulting you. You are so spiritual that you're not even insulted, but still it was wrong what I did.
You are fixed in your determination, but I have committed an offense. Right? The great souls, they don't take offense. That's one of our qualities. It's one of our practices. We take no offense. To the degree that we get offended, get ready. You're going to have a real miserable life. That offends me. That hurts me. What you said hurts me. You got to get over that, people. You can't just dance around getting our feelings hurt every moment, right? We got to be above being offended and just be compassionate to where people are at.
Yeah, you won't get too deep into spirituality when you're got too thin a skin like that.
Yeah. Mayor, I need my things back. Okay. You are fixed in your determination, but I have committed an offense. Because of this, though I may be strong as Lord Shiva, I shall be vanquished without delay due to my offenses at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava.
Okay. That's the end of the chapter.
Wow.
But this is really something here. Like we can learn a lot from this King Rahugana, who again is like apparently like the villain here, right? Like apparently he's the I don't know in theatrical language how you would exactly call him, but like he's the
antagonist.
Maybe antagonist. Is that
he redeemed himself for sure? At the end of the chapter, you're not like, oh, you jerk. You're like, oh, okay, you made a mistake. You've redeemed yourself here.
Yeah. And you know, if we go to like say Bhagavad-gita, what we're witnessing in Rahugana right now is there's a lot here that's instructive about how we advance spiritually or how we inquire into spirituality, right? Like one of the most quoted verses from Bhagavad-gita is that Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya, right? That it's a verse that's describing how this higher perspective is gained, right? Like how one gets that kind of knowledge, not just conventional knowledge, not just functional knowledge, but fundamental spiritual knowledge. So just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, you know, a tattvavit, someone who literally means, you know, the translation here, like we'll say spiritual master, really tattvavit, one who knows the truth, right? Find a person that has that higher perspective. Approach them, and then you inquire from them submissively, which he's doing right now. And also, sevaya, that you render service to that person, right? So it's saying that like this knowledge, this kind of insight, this kind of perspective, even if someone can memorize it and repeat it back like a parrot, it doesn't necessarily provide the person with the ability to see the world through that perspective, right? It's something special. It's not academic. It's something that's like a blessing, and that blessing is received through having the right attitude. So therefore you inquire submissively, you render service to that person. We see King Rahugana, he didn't stay up on the palanquin and said, what you said is interesting. I have a few
Right.
questions, right? He got down, right? He got down, he bowed his head to Jatabarta, and now he's inquiring with this with this mood of humility. He's placed himself in the position whereby he can receive that kind of blessing, this kind of vision. It says, then the verse says, the self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. And that verse is quoted so much, right, Raghunath? You hear it
Yeah.
often. Now,
Yeah, that's the verse about surrendering to a guru or having teachers in your life.
yeah.
And
And
you
then,
know,
go
on.
I was going to say, the next verse is much less quoted. But to me, it's like, it's almost not even worth doing the first one if you're not going to do the second one. It's like,
What's the next verse? 435?
435 in the Bhagavad Gita.
Oh, they will impart knowledge to you because they've seen. No.
That's the one we just read.
Okay, go on.
Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. And then now he's going to describe the vision that they give you. And this is spirituality here, right? This isn't religion anymore. This is spirituality. He says, you will never fall again into such illusion, for by this knowledge, by this insight, by this perspective, you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme. Or in other words, that they are mine. And now we were talking, was it yesterday or the day before? It was yesterday when we were saying like there's a key to crack the code of the messages of the universe. And Lord Vishnu gives that to Lord Brahma in the second canto of Bhagavatam, in the Chatur Shloki, in the 4 key verses of the Bhagavatam. And what that has to do with is seeing everything and everyone not disconnected from its root, not disconnected from God, but in connection with God. When you see it from that perspective, everything becomes clear. And so this verse speaks right to that, right? In other words, what do you get from a guru? What do you get from a truth speaker? What do you get from a self-realized soul? What do you learn? What do you imbibe? Krishna summarizes it right here. For by this knowledge, you will see all living beings as but part of the Supreme. Or in other words, that they're mine. You'll see everyone in connection to me, just the way like when you see a leaf, you see it in its connection to the tree, not separate from the tree, but connected to the tree. You realize it has an identity that is fundamentally connected with the Supreme in the same way that I am fundamentally connected with the Supreme. That vision, that the differences that we perceive based on body, based on family, based on nation, based on gender, based on race, based on species even, that they're superficial, and that we all have a similarity or a shared existential kind of position, shared, that we all share that, just as leaves share that in relation to the root of a tree.
Guess what, mister?
Come on. You wanted to share
It's
something.
time. It's
Tomorrow,
time. It's time. Yeah. Miss Mara, give us some takeaways, please.
Oh, Karuna knows that verse. We got to get her to chant it when we're done.
Release the ego and sing with the devotees.
Oh, yeah. That was an important lesson.
Yeah.
The functional identity is designed to purify us.
True.
Yeah.
We have an eternal connection beyond just our functions.
Junction, what's your function?
Looking up phrases.
No one knows what that is.
Find that
Actually,
fundamental
Europeans, right, Raghunath?
Because the Europeans have no idea what that is.
Find that fundamental identity.
Find it. Search it out. Seek it.
Inquire submissively and offer service to self-realized soul.
There you go.
Yeah.
We don't always need more knowledge. Sometimes we just need a different vantage point.
Oh, I like that. I
Thanks,
like
Rose, for your
that.
tree story.
Oh, okay.
From
You're
your tree story.
listening. She
That was from your
listens
tree
to
story,
me.
Raghunath.
We're meant to accept two different vantage points.
Okay.
See everything in connection to the Supreme.
Yeah.
And
And
there's hope for the dullards of the world.
woohoo! Good news. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Want to thank Keshava Jones for joining us. That's Keshava _ AESHABA _ RGM. If you want to study with him.
Instagram.
Yeah, great to have him. Also, remember, Fence Sitters for Italy. It's ending. We're closing it. So if you've been thinking about it, it's about to be closed in 3 days. If you want more information, go to our website, wisdomofthesages.com/events. Also, me and Cindy Lunsford and Bobby Merchan are doing a teacher training, 200-hour Bhakti Vinyas yoga teacher training at Super Soul Farm this summer, July 13th through the 28th. That's on my link in my Instagram bio, the link tree. Or Raghunath Yoga. Are we filled with our Super Soul retreat? We have off-site lodging still available. And check out also the yoga, the Bhakti Center, Ratha Yatra weekends. I'm excited. I love meeting all the podcast people coming together and partying together. It's good, clean, fun partying. That's what it is, really, Kashub.
Okay.
It's
I'll tell you something, Raghunath.
Huh?
That the tickets for the plane tickets to go from the States to Italy, they're not cheap.
They're not cheap. Okay. Are you trying to like ruin all my? I just was like trying to sell this thing, and now you're like, it's not
What
cheap.
I'm saying is, but there are
Don't do
ways
it.
to make it. There are ways to make it cheaper. First of
yeah?
all, get
Tell
on
me.
it now. Get on it now. Don't wait.
Get on it now.
And
What are your
second-
ways? Tell us your secrets. You should start like a little Instagram account of, hi, I'm Kastuba's flying hacks.
Well, here's mine. It's
Let me hear you.
It was like $400 cheaper to stop in England.
Good idea. You can
So
hang
you
it.
stop somewhere else. Spend $100 on an Airbnb, see another part of the world, and save a few $100. It works.
That's a great idea. Me and Mara did that last year. We went to Greece, and it was a lot cheaper. We stayed in Greece for 3 days.
Yeah, it's
fun?
Yeah, so think about that, people. That's a little travel hack from Kastuba.
Travel Hacks by Kastuba. That's his new account, Kastuba Hack.